Okay, so we're going to get started. So welcome again to this Education USA Postgrad USA webinar. So what is Education USA? We are an advisory service that is part of a global network and comes under the umbrella of the US State Department. Education USA has over 400 advising centers across the world that help guide international students on US studies and all the processes that are involved. In the UK, we're based here at the US-UK Fulbright Commission in London. And the Commission and Education USA are paired up to help people explore education in the US, and at graduate level, the Commission grants a number of awards and scholarships to talented students. Our aim as Education USA advisors is to offer free and unbiased advice to help UK students study in the US, and we are very happy to be here today to talk a little bit more about the postgraduate experience. So before we carry on, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Louisa Osorio-Denny, and I am the Education USA advisor here at the US-UK Fulbright Commission. And like I said, today we're going to be going over choosing funding and just the general why study in the US. So the USA offers a wide range of choices compared to the UK. There are over 1,700 universities offering postgraduate degrees in the US compared to about 120 in the UK, and that is a huge difference. There's a lot of variety in institutions and also a lot of variety amongst the different academic departments. Another reason you may consider studying in the US is to internationalize your CV. Employers cite cross-cultural experience as an attractive quality, and it's really helpful to have diverse experiences and to demonstrate the independence necessary to study abroad. US universities give you an unparalleled opportunity to create global networks, not only with American faculty and institutions, but with diverse colleagues, which makes up so many universities in the US. So the networking opportunities you'll have by considering and undertaking your postgraduate studies in the US will open lots of doors. Practical experience is another reason to study in the US. So postgraduate study also opens many opportunities for hand-on research, internships, and teaching opportunities. Of course, with that, you'll also be expanding your horizons. Living and studying in another country expands your worldwide view and may expand the opportunities available to you in the future as well. And finally, and this might surprise some of you, but another reason here is funding opportunities. And it's one of the top reasons we would say you should undertake study in the US. There are lots of funding schemes and scholarships available on postgraduate level, which we'll talk about later. So looking at key differences between the US versus the UK. One of the main differences is the duration of degrees. So typically in the US, programs are longer. So we're looking at 2 years for masters, although 1-year programs are out there, and 4 to 6 years for PhDs, though this may be less or more depending on the program and depending on the department. There's an integrated master's in the PhD in the first year or two of the coursework. Those who have already got a master's can use this time to instead sharpen skills and gain more experience through teaching or doing research as an assistant. But typically, just to note that a master's is a mandatory component of a degree. There are no pure research degrees, so programs include coursework on postgraduate level as well. There are no set fees or standard application deadlines. These vary greatly by university and department, and that's why doing your research is so important. Postgraduate programs are organised by department, not by the supervisor, so you do not need to know your supervisor beforehand, especially since programs are more interdisciplinary, which means you may have multiple supervisors or even a committee. Furthermore, you do not need to have an in-depth research proposal ready, as they expect you to figure this out throughout the program. Just as a side note here, law and medicine is also studied at postgraduate level and cannot be studied at undergrad in the United States. So on the screen right now, you're going to see a timeline of how to approach applying and beginning university in the US. So we recommend beginning to research programs around 12 to 18 months before enrollment. After this, you would be finalizing a selection of 3 to 6 universities where you'll be applying around 10 to 12 months before you plan to actually enroll. This is around the same time you want to be taking any admissions exams too, and we'll talk a little bit more about admissions exams later. About 8 to 10 months before you enroll, you'll put together applications and submit them according to deadlines. Around 4 to 7 months before, in the spring before you enroll, you can expect to hear back from the universities you apply to with their admissions decisions. And based off of where you have been accepted, you will notify universities of your decision and apply for a visa 1 to 3 months before actually enrolling. We have plenty of resources on our website to help with your pre-departure, including travel advice, living arrangements, and campus life. Just to let you know that universities typically start slightly earlier than in the UK. So that final point there, beginning your studies, usually starts around mid-August to early September. So how will you go about choosing a program? Like I said at the start, there are over 1,700 institutions offering postgraduate programs, so there are a lot of options and each institution and department will be so different. So how do you go about narrowing down where you actually want to apply to? So a term that we focus on a lot at Fulbright is this idea of fit. What this means is we want for students to find a program that is really going to be the best fit for you and your personal and academic interests. The first step in the choosing process is to locate what factors are important to you. It would be ideal for you to make a list of what really matters. Don't just go looking at universities that you've heard of straight away, or ones that you've perhaps seen mentioned in movies or TV programs. Also, don't look at the highest ranking, as you might miss out on some great universities and programs out there in the US. On the screen now, we have some top factors to consider. So the first one here is the types of institutions. So are you wanting to look at a public university versus a private university? Are you really interested in studying at a very large university with a big campus, or do you prefer a smaller, more intimate setting? So program type. At the postgraduate level, this is arguably more important than the institution itself. Here you have to consider your career goals, qualifications, and any concentrations you might be interested in. Do you want to be in a program with funded internship opportunities? Programs where you can get grant writing experience? So really think about what you want to gain from your program experience. Third on the list, we have academic department. Choosing the right department is almost as important as choosing the right university at postgraduate level. It will influence so much of your experience in the US. At PG level, academic departments generally handle admissions, they design course structures for students, and also monitors a student's progression through the whole program. So it's really essential to research the department to find the right academic home for you. Departments can vary drastically at each university in areas of faculty expertise, elective courses, concentrations, whether they are tightly focused or more interdisciplinary, in size and atmosphere, and it also varies with opportunities for teaching, research, conference attendance, and opportunities for internships. Looking at location. So the US is a massive country that spans over 6 different geographical time zones. So you really have to be thinking to yourself, are you someone who prefers urban settings versus rural? Are you looking at climate? Are you wanting to be in California in full sun throughout the year, or do you prefer the seasons or some snowy weather? Is access to public transport important to you? Where are the centres of excellence in your field base? So, for example, are you into political science, or maybe DC will be the place for you? Or are you into finance, where New York will be more relevant? And then, of course, the location will also factor into those extracurricular opportunities, whether you're into water sports or into arts, centres of arts and museums. This will all be built into the locations. And finally, we have finances. We'll talk more in depth about funding later in the webinar, but if funding is important to you, then this needs to be part of your choosing process right from the beginning. We always say follow the money. And so if you need funding to pursue postgraduate study in the US, be sure to look out for the opportunities from the very start. So with that in mind, and so many different factors to consider, how might you go about narrowing down your options? Our website has a page on choosing university, which includes a list of links and helpful search engines. For example, there is one called Peterson's and gradschools.com. You can also start narrowing your options by contacting previous professors to see whether they have any advice or opinions on schools that would be a good fit for you. You could contact professionals or colleagues in your field, or perhaps schools in your discipline. Think through the work of scholars you have previously read. Is there anyone you have identified as doing the kind of research you'd like to do? Where are they currently teaching? What are their colleagues working on? You want to be narrowing down your choice of universities to about 10 or so to then research further. So on the screen now, you have an example of Peterson's search engine linked on our website. It is particularly helpful to decide and rank what factors are important to you in choosing university. Through a filter, you can select a variety of factors like location, tuition fees, and school size to help you narrow down the list even further. So once you've got to the point where you've narrowed down your choice to about 10 universities of interest, research them further on the university website and reach out to them directly. Your goal is to select about 3 to 6 institutions where you'll actually submit an application to. To do this, we advise that you look at each university website where you can find more information on their faculty. Some even list the CVs of the faculty, their research interests, and a list of their publications. They can also provide contact information for specific professors to reach out to. Find out that they're still working on something that interests you. You might also consider reaching out to current grad students. This will give you valuable insights into their experience as a grad student at a particular university. Some unis have Zoom calls that you can book with current students, or even drop in on Zoom coffee sessions. How close are they with their supervisors? Ask them what the campus culture is like. Or even ask a more broad question about what the local area is like, how to find a good apartment, and what the cost of living is like too. So now you've narrowed down the options, let's talk about funding. Funding is one of the top things we get asked about through Education USA. And there is a misconception that the US is always more expensive. Well, the good news is there is a significant amount of funding available on postgraduate level, particularly if you are willing to be flexible and go into the process with an open mind. So where is the money? There are 4 types of funding for study in the US. First on the list, we have personal and family funds. There is a culture in the US of saving and paying for university in a way we don't have in the loan-based system here in the UK. So there is an expectation that you'll make a contribution to your studies if possible. Second on the list, we have universities themselves. This is the best resource for funding as it doesn't have to be paid back. And through this, there are two common types of university-based funding. So the first one here, we have fellowships, which are outright grants to allow the recipient to focus solely on their own work. And second of all, we have assistantships, which are offered in return for services provided to the department. And this is either through teaching, research, lab supervision, or working in a campus office in exchange for fee waivers, health insurance, and/or a stipend. Assistantships are renewable year to year if the student maintains specified academic standards. And terms of assistantships will vary dramatically between universities and departments, depend on available grants and the field and department need. This is why it's so important to ask the department or program about this kind of funding when you're choosing where to apply. It always comes first. There is more funding generally available for PhDs and students in a research-focused master's than for professional degree students, and it also varies by subject area. For example, the sciences tend to receive more funding than programs in humanities. So again, something to look out for. Check with multiple offices about funding opportunities. Check with the department itself, the graduate school, and the financial aid office. So there's various people within one institution that you can be asking questions to. Another source of funding are external funding bodies. These are niche scholarships. Institutions that are separate to universities, for example, companies, charities, foundations such as the US-UK Fulbright Commission could offer different opportunities to you. The last source we have on the list are loans. So most US lenders will require a US citizen to co-sign on the loan, which can present difficulties for those of you who are from the UK. Therefore, most UK citizens take out private loans from a UK bank. However, we would highly encourage you to examine the terms and interest rates closely. If you do happen to be an American or dual US-UK citizen, you can take out a loan from a US lender and also apply for US federal loans through FAFSA. There's more information on this on our website. Just keep in mind that university and external funding are the preferred options since they do not have to be paid back. So now you're aware of the sources of funding, we advise you to consider a funding strategy to try and lower your costs and manage expenses. You might think of the three different approaches below. So first of all, you could look at reducing the cost of living. So rural versus urban is a big contribution to this, and living in a rural area will be less expensive than living in an urban area. Secondary to this is looking at regional costs. So it's the same as in the UK, where London is obviously going to be more expensive than Lancaster. New York and LA are of course going to be more expensive than states such as Ohio and Michigan. So this is one thing that you can look into if you're looking to lower your costs. So second on the list, we have lower tuition. So you could also look to lower tuition costs through considering public universities in the US. These tend to be mean state funded and generally have lower costs than private universities. However, there is a caveat that private universities might actually have more access to funding. And like I said before, this funding will vary by department within each university. So it's all about doing the research. Lastly, you could look for university funding in addition to the ways we've already talked about. You could seek funding outside of your program, for example, if you have an interest in architecture and environmental architecture, where you'd like to make buildings more green, you could seek funding from 2 different departments. You might not necessarily be able to use all of these strategies in one go. And you might find that universities with low tuition fees have fewer funding opportunities. So be aware of the different factors at play and make sure you do your research. So one example of a funding strategy is looking at attending different universities in a specific area and comparing their costs. The example on the screen is for two universities in Boston. Boston University has a cost of attendance within the Department of Education and Human Development of over $85K, which includes tuition, room and board, plus other fees. If you compare this to an MA at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, where tuition and off-campus finances would come to $40K or less, you can see that even though both unis are in the same city, with they have a great variance in tuition and fees. So remain open-minded and really look into these kind of things. Sometimes close by universities have links as well, and they have relationships with each other. So you might be able to classes at BU while at being at UMass. So you can benefit from both worlds. Now, I'd like to take a little look at a few examples of how to identify funding opportunities. For university funding, the best resource, as I mentioned, is the university website itself. You can look at the department, the graduate school, and financial aid pages. Check all three in case not all funding opportunities are advertised centrally. Have a look at what they say. Do they have much funding available? Universities generally try to give you an accurate but conservative measure of how much funding they offer. If this information isn't available online, it might suggest that they can't offer a lot of financial support, but it's worth getting in touch with a department or director to inquire. Think about whether you'll be a competitive applicant for funding at that particular institution. Ask current students how competitive funding really is, what their assistantships involve, what the work-life balance is like. Really get the inside information. Ask about how many assistantships are available. Are they full or partial? If possible, find out on what basis they award these assistantships. Are admission exam scores factored into this, or is it more on the basis of other academics and prior research? Are there any extra requirements you need to fulfill to be considered for an assistantship? You may be automatically considered, but in some cases, applicants need to submit an additional essay or resume. I will show you an example now of what you can look out for. So here we have the website for the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. This is a top public research university. I have highlighted some key points in their section about fellowship and assistantships, and how to identify when a university has funding available. As you can see, most universities who are generous with funding will make it quite obvious on their website. In the Department of Political Science, they note that most students in their department are supported by fellowships and assistantships. They also explain that duties typically range from 10 to 15 hours a week and list the type of duties you can expect. The website mentions eligibility for a variety of fellowships and also notes that Chapel Hill, the location, has a low cost of living. So you can see that 2 points of the funding strategy that I already spoke about exist here, both for university funding and lower cost of living. On this page, we have some examples of scholarships from external funding bodies. These are non-university scholarships and can be part or full funding. There are different resources for exploring external funding scholarships. So you can use online scholarship searches, which are listed on our website's postgraduate guide. You can use the searches to help narrow down the thousands of scholarships available based on various factors, and this will allow you to find out more information about your eligibility. Make sure you refer to the funding body's website for up-to-date information about the application process and deadlines. And as you can see, there are many different non-university scholarships funding available. And I'll just quickly plug in that the Fulbright scholarships, the applications are closing, I think, within a week. So if you are interested in becoming a Fulbright scholar, please go to our website and see if you can squeeze in an application, because it really is a fantastic opportunity. So here we go. This is one of the examples of a fantastic external scholarship. We have Fulbright Awards. So this is funding that is available for UK students to study and conduct research in the US and vice versa at PG level. The number of awards fluctuates each year. Applications open in February, with a deadline being the beginning of May for the study beginning the following year. So yes, you apply to this before you even apply to the university itself. There are a variety of awards available, some for first year only, other partner awards are fully funded, so please do check our website for more details. The scholarship also offers the IIE placement model, which will provide more generous funding and support with finding the right university. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that applications close for some of our awards next week. So do head to our website to see if you are eligible and to see if you're interested in applying for this great opportunity. So some final tips as I wrap up information about funding. Applying for funding often happens simultaneous to the admissions process, so begin search for funding early. That's my number one. Be willing to put in the time and effort to seek out and apply for funding opportunities. Scholarships will not find you. You need to investigate university funding and take the time to search for the often niche external scholarships. You should be flexible in choosing universities. If it is essential for you to receive funding to complete postgraduate study, choose departments with a lot of funding or where you are competitive and a top student. Exam scores and grades of last year's admitted students sometimes are available on university websites, so you can have a look and see how you compare. For university funding, the best source is the website. It's the university website itself. Have a look at the department, the grad school, and the financial aid pages. Check all three in case not all funding opportunities are advertised centrally. And another thing to keep in mind, you can typically work on campus up to 20 hours a week during term time and 40 hours a week during holidays. Though these expected earnings can't be calculated for visa purposes when showing proof of funds, so keep that in mind. So now we've discussed a guide to choosing process and how to determine your fit to a particular university, as well as ways of funding your studies in the US. In this section, I'm going to bring you through the main components of completing the application itself. So detail varies in program applications. MBAs, for example, will look very different to molecular physics. So you have to really look at what they're looking for. US universities look for academic achievement that's measured by your undergraduate or, if applicable, postgraduate degree results and admission test scores. Most would like to see at least a 2.2 on a bachelor's degree, and you can contact individual departments or programs about whether your qualifications are sufficient to be considered for admissions. Most universities won't have strict entry requirements, but should be able to give you an approximate idea of whether your academic profile is roughly in line with their usual admitted student. Second on the list, we have academic fit, which is just as important. They want to know your reasons for pursuing a postgraduate degree at their institution and how it will help you towards your goals. They'd like to know about your relevant work experience and coursework, and of course your extracurricular involvement. US universities want to see a pattern of relevant work and study experience, laying a strong academic and practical foundations for your studies, as well as your ability and interest in being involved both in and outside the classroom. US campuses are very lively places, so they want to see the personality of their applicants coming through. They may also want to know why it is you want to study in the US in particular. So in terms of the application components, there's no standard process for applications, and this will vary from university to university. They will set out their own deadlines and application requirements. And although most applications follow a similar format, there are differences. You will be able to, however, reuse and adapt some materials you prepare for each. Most applications will include an application form with your basic information, admission test scores, which will be sent to the university by the organisation that administered the test, transcripts listing your academic marks, and you can usually ask your department, university, or registrar's office for a transcript of your undergrad or master's document. Personal statement. So here you'll describe your academic interests, professional and personal goals, and relevant experience. It's really an opportunity to put forth any personal history, context, and sell yourself to the program. Usually, you're going to be asked for 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. You will likely be required to gather 2 to 3. The university may provide some loose guidelines for selecting referees, for example, 1 letter from an academic and 1 from a professional referee. So choose someone who knows you well, both in and out of the classroom. So a CV or resume is sometimes asked for too, and this lists your professional and extracurricular accomplishments. Interviews may be required for students applying for an MBA, and occasionally for research degrees too, depending on the program. Auditions are likely to be required for students applying for programs in the arts, and students may also be asked to submit a portfolio of work, whilst students applying for research-focused degrees may be asked to submit a writing sample. And finally, please do bear in mind that applications tend to have a fee of about $50 to $150 each. So if you are thinking of pricing, you might want to factor this in to your costs. One thing you want to think about when you're choosing universities is, how does your academic profile compare to other applicants? How do universities measure you up as a potential colleague or student? So consider your grades, your UK qualifications, your test scores, your US admission scores, your research, your dissertation as part of your undergraduate degree. Some programs also ask for your work experience, and for others it might not be as important. But really think, what is your X factor? What makes you stand out? What will be more likely to increase your chances to be accepted, be competitive for funding? As an international student, maybe you had a really unique undergraduate program and can make a strong case as to why you would bring something unique to their program. And here we go, we have a slide of admissions tests, and this is another thing we get asked a lot about. So admission tests act as a method of evaluation due to a lack of a national curriculum. It really helps level the playing field a little. So there are different types of tests in the US. There is the GRE, which is a graduate record exam, and this measures your verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, critical thinking, and analytical writing skills. The GRE is asked for most master's programs. The GMAT is another test, and that is mainly for MBA programs or business programs. The LSAT is normally sat for JD programs, but not for LLM law programs, which instead require a first degree in law. And then you've probably heard of an MCAT, which is for MD programs, medical admissions, and medical admissions. These are quite different to what we're used to in the UK. They are multiple choice and there is a strict time limit. So please do your research and have a look into these different tests to see what they encompass and talk to your universities and departments to see what is required. But how important are these tests in the admissions decisions itself? The answer is it depends. Some universities may not require them at all. For others, it might be factored into their decision, but they're more interested in your personal statement and transcript. It could well be that some programs will be more interested in your analytical writing and verbal reasoning scores than how well you did in your quantitative reasoning section. It just depends. So ask about how much weight is given during your research process. To ensure you take the appropriate tests and to confirm what you need, consult the website of each university, which I've already said, but pay close attention to the university's application deadline and plan your exam schedule accordingly. Make sure you register for exams early, as this will give you the option to retake an exam if necessary. And do properly prepare for the exam. Free prep materials are found online, as well as the option to buy study guides for the different exams. One of the most important parts of the application is the personal statement. It is not like your UCAS personal statement, but the opportunity to showcase what you can bring. It is not an in-depth research proposal. Some unis may ask for separate research statements to outline your research interests and future plans. Some may ask for essays instead of a statement, and others may ask you to address something specific, so check requirements carefully. But what this is basically it's helping reveal your character, your motivation, your future goals, and interest in a particular university, program, or field. And when writing your personal statement, there is usually no set structure. You have the opportunity to be creative and make yourself stand out. Some students choose to start with an anecdote describing how they became interested in the field. Others use a central theme to link and describe their experience and future plans for their studies and careers. So this is not a time to be modest, it's a time to sell yourself as an applicant. There are more tips on our website, including examples of successful personal statements. You will also be required to gather 2 to 3 letters of recommendation, as I've already mentioned. Ask a variety of people who know you well. The university may provide some loose guidelines for selecting referees, for example, 1 letter from an academic or 1 from a professional. If you have multiple academic referees to choose from, you'll want to choose someone who knows you well, both in and outside the classroom. Choose referees that will complement your application package and each other, so you get a good balance of classroom and professional, research and extracurricular information. Just note that you can meet with your referee to discuss a letter. It would be helpful to give them a copy of your application, transcript and/or CV. You can absolutely tell them the reasons for doing a postgraduate degree in the US or for choosing the field you're interested in. Also share your future goals and make sure that your referee is aware of deadlines and paperwork they need to complete. This is a marketing tool for you as an applicant. You can make suggestions for the content of a letter, but it's important that you don't see the letter before it gets sent off to the university to maintain credibility. You can direct referees to mention your abilities to succeed at postgraduate level, observations about your performance, your ability to positively contribute to the team, leadership, your character, and your passion for your chosen subject. Above all, encourage referees to avoid being restrained and too modest. American referees tend to write in an enthusiastic tone. They use positive and descriptive language to discuss the applicant both in and outside the classroom. So bear in mind that what will be written about your American counterparts, you want to make sure you're preparing your UK referees to write letters that contend with these. It's all about selling you as an applicant. So what are the ways we can help you here at Education USA? So please, please, please do visit our website for advice guides, and events. Under Education USA Advice, which is the third tab along on the screen, you can toggle down to postgraduate study in the US, and here you'll find really detailed articles on choosing, funding, and applying to study in the US. We hold online events such as this webinar regularly, and if you miss them, we have a range of videos covering different topics on YouTube. So please do go onto our YouTube channel and have a scroll through, because there's tons of information there with guest speakers, different topics for you to kind of listen into. We also take part in university fairs across the country at periodical times throughout the year. This will all be found on the Events tab of our website. We also take questions by email, so please do email us and reach out to us if you have any questions along the process. We check our advising inbox Monday to Friday and get back to every single person. So we are here to help. Please use us as a fantastic resource to help guide you on this process.